It's another beautiful Friday, and if it's Friday, you know it's man up. So, wanaume, muvute stool karibu na TV na radio. We need to have another important discussion today. My name is James Okumu. Thank you for taking the time to hook up with us on this beautiful Friday. This morning, we talk about integrity and leadership. As men, we pride ourselves that men should be the leaders. Men are the ones leading from the home front to the community level to the national level. You know, we always pride ourselves that men are the ones who should be leading. We need men to lead. You know, the other day when Tanzania elected their first female president, a lot of conversations were going on around that whole aspect. One of the conversations we were having is, if this was Kenya, would this be acceptable? Would Kenyan men embrace a female president? And so, men, we associate ourselves with leadership, but leadership without integrity is a disaster. And in this country, I think we have quite a number of experiences we can learn from or we can look at to qualify that statement that leadership without integrity is a total disaster. So this morning, we are going to be talking about integrity and leadership, more so focusing on us as men. Because whether it's on the family front, in the community, in a locality, in a national level, we need to raise up men of integrity who will lead with integrity. But what does that entail? If you have any questions for us today, I would invite you to be a part of the discussion by sending in your question on 20316, WhatsApp 0786 316 316. As always, I have an amazing guest. I will be introducing him to us in the next short while, and we have some wonderful music to accompany our conversation. I'm hanging out with Brian Chesoli. Brian Chesoli is program lead at Ashoka East Africa. Brian, how are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you, James. Thank you for having me today.
Karibu sana. It is good to have you. Before we even get into this conversation, there's a message here that's from Evelyn. Evelyn says, Kenya, we have a problem because men nowadays have no integrity, no morals, not responsible. Some of them have no leadership qualities. They have nothing to offer. That's why we have more problems in Kenya. Hey, Evelyn amekuwa mkali na hata hatujaanza discussion. Evelyn, come slowly. We are trying to get solutions. Yeah. But I don't know what you think about that statement that Evelyn is making.
Well, I think that is informed by experience, and maybe the experience that she's had of the men that, you know, have been in her life have not been that good.
Yeah.
And I guess for us, you know, today it's just to, first of all, apologize for, you know, that sort of character.
Yeah.
To start with. But also just to make it clear that it's not all men, you know, that I feel like that is a blanket statement. So we should give people a chance, right?
Very true.
So that is what I feel.
Very true. When we talk about integrity, what exactly are we talking about? At least leadership we understand, but integrity, how do we break it down?
I think for me, it's all about, you know, your values. You know, when we think about integrity, for me, it starts with, you know, what governs you as a person. It starts with that, having that vision, having that sort of mission, being honest, being kind. You know, there's this whole approach of being that person within the society who's able to connect with others, who's able to, you know, say what you mean and mean what you say. I think that is the lacking bit in the society. Values, having values, being governed by these values, and, you know, being authentic, true to yourself. I think that is what, for me, integrity means. It's being grounded, right?
Yeah. You know, when you talk about values, sometimes I keep wondering about national values as a country. We may say these are our values, but when we interact on the ground and we live everyday life, we are portraying different values. It's like, when we talk about corruption, especially issues bribery, that has become our value, whether we accept it or not. It's almost like it's standard procedure. Sometimes somebody looks at you and wonders, which country do you live in? This is how we do things in Kenya, meaning this is the value that we have ascribed to, you know, and I think we are not very deliberate about our values. We just allow things are so fluid. Whatever we can flow with now is whatever we will flow with, and I think that's dangerous.
And I completely agree with you. You see, the leaders that we have are a reflection of the values that as a society we embrace. We cannot dissociate, you know, leadership and the society and say they are them and we are us. The people that we put in leadership actually, echo what values as a society we embrace. And that is why it's important, James, if you allow me to say this, that is why it's important for us to begin to nurture, these values when people are young. If we are supposed to inculcate, true leadership or leaders with integrity or leaders of integrity, then it's supposed to start when we are young or when they are young. So it's parenting some sort of change makers, people who are able to empathize, people who are able to be honest, people who are able to be grounded, which is really important, being grounded, saying what you mean and meaning what you say, not presenting yourself as one thing in the public eye and then another thing when you're in a home environment, right?
I like that, because somebody once told me that life makes up its mind at home. And as much as I may not have a leadership position in the community or a leadership position on a national scale, I do have a leadership position in my own home, and so I may have these big dreams of, if I was a leader out here, this is what I would do. But then the question is, are you already doing it in your house?
Yeah. True, very true, very true. And I like that as well, because you see, if I'll give you an example, right? Say you have a child at home and you notice that, you have two children at home, right? And you notice that one of them is bullying the other. You see, this is a good opportunity to begin to teach certain values for parents, right? And that is why I say parenting change makers earlier on, and maybe I'll come back to that later. It's how do we use such opportunities to begin to just teach these young people, listen, what you've done, there's a way that we can go about it. How did it make your brother or sister feel when you approached this situation in this manner? Do you feel that you were unfair to them? Do you feel that you could have approached it in a different way? How can we make sure that this doesn't happen again? We start slowly by teaching young people certain values so that when they grow up, they're able to, relate to that, experience that they had when they were really young. And that home environment is where they get all this experience.
Very, very true. One of the things that I keep wondering about, even when we talk about leadership on a national scale, is I feel like integrity is not really an issue we consider. It's almost like the more money you have, the better chances you stand to get into some of these leadership positions where the nation is concerned. And we tend to gravitate towards people who will give us this and that. It doesn't matter how they got the money. The fact is they have the money and we can gain something from it. So we have a culture in this country of, if I can gain something from you, then that's okay. I can vote for you. I can do this for you. But I think that is what has gotten us to where we are today. And I keep wondering, how do we change that?
I think, James, we need first of all to realize that in today, the world that we live in, it's been colored by, the have and the have-not, right?
Yeah.
And when I say the have and the have-not, I'm not just talking about those who have the resources and those who don't have, but I'm also talking about those people who have certain skills and those who lack certain skills.
Okay.
And it creates some sort of inequality that exists within the society. And so the first step that I think we can make is to begin to bridge this gap, to begin to create a world in which, or a society in which everyone feels powerful. Everyone does not feel like I need to depend on someone else. You need to have that skill within you to begin to say, okay, I can do this. I can lead change. I can create change within my environment. And you put it right, James, when you say, the leaders that we have out there, it's always a matter of, they're very charismatic in their approach.
Yes.
When you listen to them speak, they can draw you in. And our fault as a people is that when this happens, and when we catch these guys, with their hands in the cookie jar, they shift that narrative from what has happened to now, hey, these are our people. Huyu ni mtu wangu.
Yeah.
That narrative completely shifts, and we don't hold people accountable. And integrity is all about accountability, being able to take responsibility for what you're doing, and not really, they're separating those two and saying, this is what I did when I was in leadership, but mini mutuenu sahi, and then saying, so take me as mutuenu. As a people, we need to have these certain skills that we're talking about, being able to empathize, being able to take leadership, and being a person who's honest, a person who's authentic, a person who's, able to mean what they say and say what they mean at all times.
I like that. Saying what you mean and meaning what you say. Earlier on, you talked about others, and I find sometimes where we are at today is because even when it comes to leadership, we don't necessarily get into leadership because we have such a burden to serve others, but we get into leadership because of the perks that come with the position and the open doors that we will gain from that position. And we get into leadership to lord it over others, not to serve them, but to be their boss. They have to serve me. How do we begin to change the narrative? Because I know you're big on the whole aspect of, bringing about change, not just in your life, but in the lives of others. Where do we begin, and how do we build that?
I think, and I'll keep on just stringing or connecting the dots as we continue our discussion today. It starts with transforming the growing up experiences of young people, right?
Oh.
When you find yourself in a situation where you feel, there's some sort of injustice, how about finding your voice? How about, talking about it so that that situation can be addressed? You see, I think some sort of immunity or culture or impunity, that culture of impunity that has been inculcated in us.
Yeah.
When you're in high school and you see your, brother or sister or friend there, cheating, we accept this. And you see, the more we accept this behavior, we normalize it. And that's where the problem comes in.
Okay.
And you see, they begin to explode the more we grow older. It becomes you're in a different situation. You're in a position where you can influence change. You can, take or, do certain things at a very great, that could have a great impact. But you're trying to see, how can this position serve me? Instead of acting in the best interest of others, exercising your empathy for the good of all, people begin to look at it as, how can I benefit from this? And so as a society, we need to begin to look at having certain values that inform the way we interact with our leaders, or inform the way we interact with one another.
Yeah.
Because as you stated, James, leadership is not just about the position. It can begin at home. And so we should begin to exercise these values: empathy, honesty, authenticity, especially in this age of social media.
Yes.
It's very important for us to be authentic to who we are and not present ourselves as one person and then appear as a different person in a different setting.
So if I hear you right, Brian, basically from what I'm gathering from what we're talking about today is that, sometimes we look at this picture from the whole. When we talk about leadership, we look at it from a national scale. We look at our politicians. We look at those people who are basically decision makers where the nation is concerned. And we tend to focus so much on this, but we forget that this began here. And for this to change, we have to go back here, because you talk about school and somebody is cheating and we say nothing about it, or somebody did this and we shield them. We are basically creating a culture that by the time we get here, it has become such a big thing, and we can point a finger here and we forget, but we are the ones who began it there.
Exactly. We watched it happen, we watched it grow, but we ignored it, assuming that it was the norm, or it's acceptable because it's a small thing, right? But remember, our integrity, or the people that we are in the environments that we are, there are certain experiences that really test our character. Right? So if you're walking in town and you find money, somewhere there, down, do you go ahead and just pick it? You see, you're supposed to ask yourself certain questions like, did you deserve this money? Is it yours? Is the right thing taking it and keeping it to yourself, or trying to find a way that it can be, gotten to the right person, if not getting it to the authorities? There are certain small experiences that we kind of remove from the general experience, and then we claim that, when we have leaders in position of leadership, and they are corrupt or they do these things that don't really emulate our values,
Yeah.
that is, the outlier. But in truth, this behavior has been, practiced. It's been exercised in the day-to-day experiences that we have. And when they get there, it just explodes. It comes out clearly that this is the person that we are.
The other day I had put up a post on my Facebook page, and I was asking that if you were in a leadership position and you had the opportunity to sign off 100 million shillings, and no one would know, no one would follow you up, no one would ask any questions, would you do it? And I said, don't be quick to answer, think through it, then give me your answer. And it was very interesting because some people I know to be Christians, they love God. They said, you know what? Me, I would sign it off. Finish all my problems, do what I need to do. I'll sort out my issues with God later. I know he will forgive me, but I will do it. I was so shocked by the number of people who said, you know what, I will do it. With all the problems I'm going through, I will do it. No one will know. No one will be affected. My life will change. I'll be able to help people in the community that I come from with all this money. And I thought, then we have a bigger problem than we think. We point fingers at others simply because we don't have the position and the opportunities that they have. Maybe we would do worse if we were in the same position they are in.
I totally agree with you. I think, our boundaries get tested when we're that position, when now we have access to those resources, when we have access to those opportunities. So how do we become, people of integrity and continue to act in that way? And by the way, James, I just want to say that at times, we fall, right?
Yeah.
We fall. But it's all about taking responsibility. When we fall, it's taking responsibility and acknowledging what had happened and saying, yes, I did fall here, but now I want to take a different path. I'm not going to find myself in the same situation. Because you can be tempted once or twice. And it's important for us to understand, the values and the principles that govern us. If we find ourselves stepping aside, let us find our way back to those values. Let us find our way back to that path.
Great. So shortly we'll talk about how then does somebody stand as a man of integrity if we are surrounded by this culture. Sometimes unless you compromise, you will not get the position. You will not get the promotion. Unless you compromise, you will not get the tender. Unless you do this, you will not get this. And so sometimes we find ourselves in a place where we are caught between a rock and a hard place. And you so much want to be this man of integrity, but there are some things you must do to progress to the next level. How do you handle that? If you have any questions for us this morning, or maybe an experience you want to share, 20316 is the SMS line, and the WhatsApp number is 0786 316 316. We are on Man Up today, talking about leadership and integrity. It is Man Up today. It's all about integrity and leadership. We're hanging out with Brian Chesoli, program lead at Ashoka East Africa. If you have any questions for us, 20316 SMS line, WhatsApp number 0786 316 316. Evelyn says, where I work, Okumu, men from the top steal. And if you don't do as they say, you are harassed and shifted to a department that's not conducive. And to make matters worse, if you want a promotion, lazima uteremshe bendera. And that's the norm in the company. And she says, I refused their stealing legacy. I was shifted to another department, and promotion was given to another lady who was willing to teremsha the bendera. Oh, my goodness. So how do you navigate through a situation like that, Brian, where, here you are a man of your values, you're a man of integrity, you want to do the right thing, but you can't progress because the people who are around you don't have the same values. For them, they want to steal, they want to do whatever. It doesn't matter what they do as long as they get to the top, and they're the ones who are overseeing you. How do you navigate through that?
Wow. Again, the messages that are coming in are very interesting. I think first, when we, if we are people of integrity and when we act, with integrity, I think the first thing that becomes clear is that being honest, being authentic, and having all these values, you don't necessarily get the benefits from that. It's not always that you get the benefits from this.
Yes.
And remember, earlier on, James, we were talking about, when we have people in leadership positions, acting in a corrupt way or in an unethical way, it is a true reflection of our society, meaning that these values also exist within the company, right? These values also exist within our families, within our friends, within all these circles that we're talking about. And at times it just has, what is required of people is for us to stand our ground, to really hold on to our values. It takes time to get there. It really does, to break some of this culture, to break some of these things that we've normalized. It does take time. And it's important for us to realize that it's not going to be easy. At times, we won't get the promotions that we want, we won't get access to the opportunities that we want. But there's always one thing that people will appreciate you for, your honesty, your character. It will always define you, and people will always consider you as a dependable person, right? If you speak the truth, then people will always seek your counsel because they know that when they come to you, they will get it straight. They won't have to, they won't be uncertain if you were dilly-dallying around them, if you're playing jokes with them or something. They know they will get it straight. They know the type of person you are. And this is the type of character that we want to build. People who are able to stand their ground, people who are able to speak their truth.
I love that, and I think we all need to realize that being a man of integrity will cost you. It will cost us something. I think about Joseph in the Bible. Being a man of integrity cost him years of being a slave, years of being in prison. I'll never forget, a lady once shared a story with me, and I think I've shared it on this show before. Her boss had asked her to do something that was against her values. Basically, she was supposed to falsify some documents, and it would benefit the company. She refused. She refused. She was adamant. She refused, and the boss threatened to sack her. In fact, she was about to be sacked, and she told the boss, before you sack me and you let me go, just a thought for you to consider. Have you ever considered that if I will not lie for you, I cannot lie to you?
That's beautiful. That is very beautiful.
And the boss took a pause and he thought, by the way, that is so true. And that is to my advantage. This is somebody I would want to keep because I am assured they will always tell me the truth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's what we want to have, right?
Yeah.
And to have ourselves being known for the good and not for the bad. If someone wants, a shortcut, you're the first person that they run to. If someone wants, to get this done, you're the person that they run to. So you want to be known as that person who's, dependable, that person who would like to, to be a role model. You're a role model in the society. You're helping other people, emulate, what you're doing, your actions and your words, go hand in hand.
Very
so
true.
that is actually beautiful.
There's an interesting aspect that Phoebe in Nyeri is bringing in. Phoebe from Nyeri says, my take is this: the saddest thing that ever happened in this country was the exam cheating that was almost becoming a national value until Matiang'i came along. The parents are the ones who are assisting their children to cheat, and the children knew the parents were stealing exams for them. How do you undo that damage to your child, even as we say that change has to start at the grassroots? You help your child to cheat, they pass, we celebrate on TV and their pictures are in the papers. How do you undo that? Because you've taught them that's the way of life.
True, very true. And the worst thing is that, you see, when you're young, your parents are your first source of information, values, everything. You get it from them before you start getting it from anyone else, right? And going back to what we said earlier on, it starts with parenting change makers. And if a parent doesn't have these values, then it becomes a bit hard to teach the children. You see, what I've come to, the people that I've come to interact with within my work, what we begin to notice is that most of them started this journey of leading change within their communities when they were really young.
Wow.
And that is why I focus on child and youth programs, because it's important for us to begin to transform the growing up experiences of young people. It's important for us to redefine what success means.
Yes.
It's important for us to redefine that growing up experience. So that if it's, in that classroom environment, say for example, because this is one of the key things that color our experiences, talk to anyone, they will tell you cheating was, the norm in the classroom. So the thing is, can we redefine that? Can we redefine what success, what are the outcomes of education? It's not about just celebrating the A's. What about that person who got a D? Does it mean that this person is not a person, a useful person in society? Not at all. It just means that maybe that whole learning experiences was not structured to empower him or her.
Yeah.
So how do we redefine that? It starts with, the people who are tasked with nurturing these values, nurturing these skills, so that we end up producing good, men of integrity or women of integrity.
I like that. And I like the fact that you deal with child and youth programs because several times on this show, the whole aspect or the whole issue of the boy child versus girl child comes along. And sometimes I wonder, do we really listen to some of the things we are saying as men? Sometimes you have somebody who says the girl child has been over-empowered, the boy child has been neglected. And I keep wondering, who is this who is, if it was true, because I don't believe it's true, if it was true, who is this who is over-empowering the girl child? Is it a man or a woman? So if women are empowering girls, where are the men to empower the boys? Basically, what we're saying is we have dropped the ball, and so I don't know what you would say to the men, because we have to focus on the young ones who are coming along, give them the right foundation, build into them the right values, develop the right character, so that when they become the leaders of tomorrow, then there will be men and women, there will be men of character and integrity as leaders. What can we do now as men to empower this coming generation?
I think one, and this is something that I've gone through, it's a mentorship and being role models, right? At times we take such experiences very lightly. But as I mentioned, I started my journey after, experiencing, some sort of depression and getting to a point where I wanted to commit suicide until I read a book where, the purpose-driven life.
Yes.
Purpose-driven
life, yeah. Purpose-driven life, Rick Warren.
Yes, I did. And you see, that changed my perception of, life and what I wanted to, where I belonged and all that. And also being role models, there are men out there who are actually, helping other young men, right? Taking them through experiences or helping them go through experiences and teaching them values, important values that equip them, that, begin to build those muscles of, being authentic, being true to yourself, speaking your truth, and being able to say what you mean and mean what you say.
Yeah.
And I think that is how men, we should act, being able to, stretch back and hold that other person and bring them up the curve, making them, understand the way to go. Even if they're going astray, how can we rope them back in? How can we begin to work together as men and support one another? I think we need such circles to be able to get there.
I love what you're saying, because just thinking back in my own life, I think when I was in high school, I find that in high school is where you lose a lot of people, especially the young men. It is in high school where we get exposed to quite a number of things. Maybe nowadays it's even younger in primary school, and if we had mentors, men who go back to the high schools, go back into the communities, the churches, and just make ourselves available to talk to these young men, to show them the way in which they should go. But I find that sometimes we feel like I have nothing because I don't have substance in terms of monetary substance. That is what the society has glorified. I'm not driving a flashy car, I don't have a title anywhere. I'm just a simple, regular, everyday guy. And so because of that and because of what society has celebrated, I feel like I have nothing to offer, and so I don't even make any effort. How do we change that perspective?
Wow. That's a good one. That's a good one, James. I think And if I got you right, James, and then please help me when you feel I haven't really explained myself or really gotten the question right. We start with the building blocks. What are the building blocks that we want to have within our communities? You know, in our groups, small groups of friends, these small circles that really inform and build us, build our identity. You actually, you stated it, that in high schools, that is where we have this sort of transition when young people are beginning to get that self-identity, and find themselves. So how do we begin to inform these small groups? How do we begin to create the right sort of backbone and structure that these small groups can be able to learn from, right? And this is maybe where we bring in mentorship. This is where we begin to tell them, how do you define your vision? How do you define your mission? Because it's important for a man and a person to have a vision and a mission. How do you set your boundaries? How do you begin to speak authentically so that when you are speaking, when you're using your voice, you're not shouting, but you're able to touch someone's mind, you're able to touch someone's heart and make that lead to action, because that is what we want, right? We want to be able to nurture, change makers who are able to, bring about impact, bring about change, bring about, exercise their empathy for the good of all. So if we identify what are these building blocks that we want to have within our society, within our small groups of friends, then we can begin to inform that growing up experience of young people. We can begin to inform how men will act in the future. In whatever space they're in whatever, circle they're in, they will always remember these values. They will always tie, this experience to a point in life where James came and talked to us and really spoke to us authentically, telling us about his life experience and what he went through. And that is why, my life changed. That is why I took this path. So this is what I would like to see, like those building blocks. How can we begin to form them?
Wow. There's something you shared earlier as you talked about your own life, and how transformation came into your life. One of the things I find that sometimes becomes hard for us men to share is to share our failures. We always want to have a success story. Even when we are mentoring these young people, we always want to show them how we have made it in life. But very few of us are comfortable enough to tell them, this is how I messed up in life, and this is how it affected me. I'll never forget one time this gentleman was speaking to us men in our church, and he basically told us about his sexual escapades and how they have messed up his life today. How he is, this is the baggage I must carry for the rest of my life because of these decisions I started making when I was in high school. And so I'm here to tell you, learn from my mistakes. You don't need to go this route. If you're on this path, this is the end result. I am the living proof because I'm living it. I'm trying to, gather things together to make something out of this, but it's not easy. It has cost me this. It has cost me this. It almost broke up my marriage. And I keep wondering, why is it that sometimes as men we are afraid to share our failures for the next generation to see that if I go on this path, this is where I will end up? Because I think those are powerful lessons that you never forget.
Yes, indeed. And I think it's how we, the society has informed, our idea of failure, or our idea of what it means to succeed against what it means to fail, right? And no one wants to be associated with failure. And we are trying to now redefine this by really speaking about our failures, because we are realizing that we are teaching people how to succeed, but we've never taught them how to fail.
Yes.
And if we're not teaching them how to fail and they experience it, it actually impacts them negatively than it would, when they succeed. Because, success, the bar keeps on rising and you kind of feel that fulfillment. But what happens when you fail? What does that feeling look like? Can someone come to us and tell us, this is what happened in my life and this is what I went through. I'm trying to be authentic and that is good. And that is why when we were talking about, what are these building blocks, right? Authenticity came up. It's important for us to be authentic when we communicate, right? It's important for us to speak the truth. And we should realize that failing, or this failure is not a bad thing. It's an opportunity for us to learn. And if it's an opportunity for us to learn, then it's also an opportunity for us to share with those who are around us, those who are, before us, and those who are coming, after us.
Very, very true. Our time is almost up. Brian, you said you are the program leader at Ashoka East Africa and you handle child and youth years programs. What are some of the things you do when you're looking at children and youth programs?
So Ashoka is an organization that started with identifying leading social entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. These are people who are able to, identify a problem, and then empathize with that problem, and not only empathize with that problem, but action this empathy for the good of all. And I've been mentioning this, right? And so after a period of 40 years globally, we began to realize that these leading social entrepreneurs started that journey when they were young. Uh-huh. And so what Ashoka did is now begin to focus on how do we transform the growing up experiences of young people. Mm-hmm. And that means looking at who we can bring on board, who are those key actors. So that could be parents, that could be, learning institutions. Yeah. And so that is what we are trying to do, to transform that growing up experiences of young people in partnership with these people, institutions where they can begin to hire change makers who can come in, mm-hmm. They know their space, they're able to act, action their empathy, they're able to take leadership, and this is new leadership. They're able to work in teams, and they're able to support one another to grow that vision of a company.
Yeah, wow. That is wonderful. You guys are celebrating an anniversary.
Yes, we are. Thank you for just bringing that up.
Yeah.
We are. Ashoka in East Africa is celebrating 20 years in East Africa. Uh-huh. And on the 7th of May, I want to invite you and your audience, and the audience who's been listening to us for this past hour, to join us online. You can just look at ashoka.org and, you can get that. And I'm happy to share, the information with you to share on your social media page. We are going to be discussing about, the change makers in Kenya. We did a research last year, and we are able to talk to about 400 leading social entrepreneurs. And now we're having a conversation with them. We're having a conversation with policy leaders. We're having a conversation with, different organizations who are within that space. We're working together to transform Kenya and Nairobi to a change maker city and a change maker country.
Wow. Brian, thank you. Thank you for finding the time to talk to us today. I know you have to rush in for another meeting, but I'm so grateful you spared some time to talk to us this morning. Asante sana.
Thank you for inviting me, and it has been an invaluable discussion. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Awesome. Men, we need to rise up and mentor the next generation. We don't need to flow with the status quo. Apana, what values are driving your life? Yeah. Your values, stick with them. It will cost you, but at the end of the day, it is worth it. The next generation is watching, and how we live our lives today, they will magnify it when they become the leaders of tomorrow. We're out of time for today. Thank you for being a part of Man Up. Right now, we want to get into Food for Thought with Professor Ndete. Food for Thought is a segment we have every Friday that highlights issues, mental health. There's a lot of stigma associated with mental health issues, and every Friday for about 15 minutes we hang out with Professor Ndete, who begins to give us insights and understanding into some of these mental issues, how they affect people, are they treatable or not, how manageable are they, and so let's get into that as we have another enlightening discussion. It's another beautiful day. Thank you so much for tuning in. It is Food for Thought with Professor Ndete. About 2 weeks ago, we started this series talking about paranoia, understanding what it is. Professor has been giving us some insights and giving us some stories to illustrate how this condition manifests itself. But we haven't quite finished because we are yet even to get into solutions that are available. So we pick up this conversation from where we left off last week. Karibu.
Paranoia is one of the conditions, psychiatric condition, that responds very well to treatment.
Okay.
Fortunately.
Wow. Is this condition found in both adults and children, or just adults?
Paranoia can occur very early in life, beginning with children.
Yes.
Because children do get psychiatric conditions. In fact, we are conducting the national study here on detection of early psychosis, so that you can initiate treatment very early. We have instruments that we can use screening even before the children start showing the symptoms, because the idea is to pick it very, very early.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it can occur in children. And this may just present with unusual behavior in schools, not wanting to interact with other children, staying away from other children, and you just can't understand what is happening. People just say, so and so, this child behaves queer is a queer child. This could be very early signs of a child who feels very unsafe from his or her friends either in the class or in school. Very common indeed. But generally in the population, it tends to occur fairly early in life, between 15, 19, 20 years. That's the time when it occurs most. But the paranoid delusions, which is the one I was calling paranoid, there is no question, there is no understandable cause for this, may occur in the early 30s, early 40s. But then as people get elderly and there are changes in their brains, and then they can get the late onset of paranoia. And again, for some reason, tends to respond very well to treatment. The paranoia bit of it. Yes. And then they are left with the primary condition, which is the cause of this paranoia, and then you can deal with it separately. And there is nothing more satisfying to the families. I mean, sometimes it's just overwhelming. This child they loved so much was not eating with us, was kept on calling us all kinds of names, saying we are talking about him. They just couldn't understand what's going on. And you give them treatment, and you explain to them what is understanding, what is happening. Because more often than not, they don't understand. It's awareness. And you treat them, and the child becomes friendly. I have seen
night and day.
I have seen mothers break down.
Oh my goodness.
Say, thank you, doctor, for giving me back
my child.
My child. There's nothing more satisfying than that. Yes.
I'm wondering, Professor, with what we are going through currently in the world, this pandemic, there's been a lot of what do you call them? A lot of theories and a lot of suspicions. You know, right now we're in the midst of people being administered with the vaccine. You have this group of people who are saying, no, they're out to kill us. That vaccine is out to kill Africans. Others are saying so many things, so many theories on online and social media. And I'm just wondering, how would you classify that? I have friends who have said, me, I'm not touching that thing. I am not going to get near it. They want to kill us Africans. They want to get rid of us so that they can come to our continent and take all the minerals. Yes. And I'm thinking, like, really?
Well, again, James, as we are saying, this is understandable. These people are not, they don't have clinical paranoia the way I've explained it.
Yes.
You know, remember starting by saying, when people don't quite understand the environment and what is going on, when they remember the past, how some people in the past used things to kill other people, these things live in the minds of people. So and so who is associated with this vaccine has said this about Africans.
Yes.
I've talked about negatively about population explosion in Africa and the need to reduce, to curtail the growth of population. When they hear of those things, when there is no complete information as to what is happening. Like, for example, was I listening to something as I was coming to the office about, or was it yesterday, people saying, well, we don't want this vaccine because some of us have developed some adverse effects and nobody told us about that. And then maybe one person, but with social media, this information spread very fast. When that happens, I will not call it paranoia in the real sense. It's just when people do not quite understand what is happening around them, and it's just a question, in my view, of giving them proper information where that information is available.
So that they stop speculating.
So that they start speculating.
Okay.
Speculation can occur when there is not adequate information.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
That's normal.
Ah, that's normal.
That's
It's would I be right in saying that's kind of like a protective mechanism?
Absolutely, absolutely. That's what I started by saying.
Yes.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for that person who's watching us today or listening to us and they can identify with some of the things we've discussed today, which direction would you point them?
I think if there's you mean a relative or a person?
Yes, a relative.
Let's talk about the relative.
Yes.
The relative has got very important role to play. Maybe the mother or the children, siblings or parents or even grandparents. If that happens, if you see this happening, don't be confrontational. Because we also tend to be confrontational.
Yes.
Because we do not understand.
Yeah.
But now, if you are listening to this, instead of being confrontational, understand that this is a problem that needs attention. And don't tell the patient or the relative that they are pretending because they are not pretending. Engage them in dialogue, in discussion, and maybe try to get help for them. Sometimes you just make them understand the environment in which they are. But if it is a clinical one which needs attention, they tend to respond very well to treatment. And just take them to see a counselor or somebody who might prescribe something. And by that, we can prevent a lot of these conditions from getting severe. Like this study that we are doing here with the university in USA.
Yeah.
We now know that some of these symptoms start very, very early. And they are not recognized, and you can screen for them. And if you answer screen, you find that they have certain kind of score. And the standard practice in UK all over the world, and we are trying to see whether that can also be a practice here. You start them on some medicine.
Okay.
And if you start them on medicine very early in life, to reverse the chemical changes that are taking place in the brain, you can actually prevent these early symptoms from converting to a mental illness in about 30%. And if you can prevent this condition from becoming a clinical case in about 30%, completely free of those symptoms, that's a very big achievement.
Very true.
And even if you don't get them to have a remission, 100% remission, even when the symptoms do develop, they are very mild, much milder than would have been the case if they had not received the treatment. They will be able to continue with their own lives and go to school and perform well in school. Then you will have achieved something for these people.
Okay.
So early intervention for anybody who has this condition, regardless of the age, and this will come as a result of you being very observant, is very, very helpful. Don't expect that person, out of their own volition, to go looking for help, because for them these things are so real, they are not sick.
Yes.
In fact, if you tell them they are sick, you have a very big problem with them. Because if you tell them this is abnormal, by definition, you are telling them they are mad.
Yeah.
And they will tell you, please, don't even.
They will not take it kindly.
No, they are not going to take it kindly. I am not mad, and problem, you are the one who is mad.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because their reality is so real to them.
It's so real. I mean, it's so real. I mean, they are not pretending. And when people say they are hearing voices, they are not pretending.
Yes.
They hear them.
Wow.
Yes.
Let's finish by I know we keep talking about this, and I think it's important, the whole issue of stigma and even roping in the whole religious view of such issues, because I think, you know, some of the conversations we've been having have been so enlightening, and we need to get to a place where we work together, you know, the clergy, the doctors, the family members, to see that our friends, our families get the help they need. Because going back to the story you shared earlier about this elderly woman, you know, and at night she was being sexually assaulted, you know, when something like that is probably brought to my desk, my first inclination would be, you're demon possessed. There's something wrong. We need to exorcise you or something like that. But interestingly, this lady went under medication and this whole thing was reversed.
Yes.
You know, so what can you tell us in terms of, for the clergy who's listening in, and for those of us who've got a lot of these traditional beliefs, what can you tell us? Because unless we come together...
I think the most important thing is that is awareness. And this awareness should be to all of us. Stigma comes because you do not understand what is going on.
Yes.
And what you don't understand, you stigmatize. And the only way to get rid or to minimize stigma is to make people understand and increase awareness that what you are dealing with is a medical condition, which we call psychiatric or mental, but nevertheless, it is a medical condition.
Yes.
And it is a medical condition because there are chemical changes in the brain. And these chemical changes can be demonstrated. Maybe the neuron connections in the brain are not quite normal, and this person develops this kind of condition. These are scientific facts that we know today, which we did not know some time back many years ago. But more recently, we know this. So if you understand that we are dealing with a condition of the brain, and we have that beginning, then we can start working together.
Yes.
And we need to work together, but not only with the clergy. And I'll tell you the reason why. If there's a problem in the family, people rush to the pastors.
First. Yes.
That's where they go.
Yeah.
So I would not like to see a situation where somebody is hearing voices and the pastor says, those are voices from the demon. And we need to get rid of those demons. And I don't want to challenge you, by the way, because that is the only way, is your only model of explaining this condition, because you have been brought up in that kind of situation. If it's a Muslim, they also think alike. If it's a traditional healer, you have been bewitched, that kind of thing. But if we have a dialogue, all of us together, and we say, as much as we respect what you believe, what you think, or you believe, because that is the only explanatory model that you have, there is also this medical model. And our experience has been that if you take this kind of approach, then you break the barriers.
Yes.
Because you break the barriers because there is common understanding, and people will understand, yes, there is a medical model that explains this, and if we cooperate and we give this person medicine, by all means go and pray. We know that prayers are very effective. I have never denied that, and this again is scientific. That believe that there's a higher force up there has got an effect on your mind. Goes through all the system and actually improves your immunity. Again, this is science. It's not just data. This is science. So why don't we just work together? Never look down upon a pastor or start having a quarrel with a pastor. And the pastors don't quarrel with us. Let's work together. Don't go and quarrel a traditional healer because you say they never went to school, very abusive language. And who are they to tell us? Because at the end of the day, they have a role to play, because they are consulted. So why don't we just educate them and say, as these people come to see you, also remember that this could be the case, and they make referrals.
Very true.
They make referrals. Pastors make referrals. I think I'm seeing here many patients who have been referred by pastors.
That's good.
Yesterday, I stayed here late because a bishop somewhere says, please, 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 please wait for me. Yeah, there is COVID, there is curfew. Please wait for me. I'll try to be very brief. He left his work, and this patient was just having a mental illness.
Wow.
Yeah, referred by a bishop. Who had tried prayers, but eventually decided maybe
we need to look at it.
That bishop was referred to me by another bishop.
Wow, I like that.
Yes.
Professor, thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, thank you.
We appreciate it.
Yes.
I hope you've learned something about paranoia. And if you know somebody or family member who has the symptoms of what we've talked about, just like Professor has said, get them the help that they need, because help is available. That's all the time we have for Food for Thought with Professor Ndetei today. Have yourselves a great day.
For this and more of our shows, log on to www.familymediaonline.com to enjoy a wide variety of programs, from current affairs to testimonials and features, pastoral and inspirational shows, kids entertainment, and so much more. Also stream live on www.familymedia.tv.